All right, man. We are on. I'm going to click over here so we go
up?
live on Instagram. Cool. Welcome, everyone, to another week of Chicago Landlord Secrets. So how many weeks in a row have we done this here?
I think this is what, 6 or 7?
I think this is 7, man. So we can officially say we are Chicago's #1 property management live show. So I'm not sure if anyone else is out doing that, but I challenge anyone to compete or come on here as a guest with us.
Yeah.
What's the springtime looking like for you here so far? How's the weather for you?
Isn't it great? We're tomorrow is the official start of spring, and it'll be 75 and sunny, and winter's over. Oh wait, never mind. Monday will be 20. So
Is it really? Okay, I'm not
yes.
on top of the weather.
So if you're a gardener out there, don't get fooled this weekend and try to throw anything out there. It is drastically going to drop again on Monday.
Is there a better time? Somebody asked me this question the other day, and I'll tell you my answer, but I'm curious to know what you would say. Is there a better time for somebody as a real estate investor to close on a property in better time of the year to close on a property or buy a property?
So I will say I don't think there's anything for a better time of the year necessarily. I would say maybe winter a little bit just because the market is is weaker, so you might be able to find a better deal or someone more desperate to sell that's not waiting till spring. Um, but I do like finding when can I close where I get to skip an entire month or 2 months of mortgage payments. So there's in every month there's a few days at the end where you won't get your first mortgage payment for almost 60 days instead of the normal 30 or 15. So I do try to get towards the back end of the months or the very beginning of the month, however that works out with the lender to postpone that first payment. That'd probably be more something I try to do more than seasonals. Seasonals, when do the deals show up?
Yeah, I think for the mortgage game there, and I used to always play that, even with refinancing as well too. If you close on your property or refinance, it's usually like the 7th or later of the month. That means, let's just say someone closed on March 7th, they wouldn't pay their first mortgage payment till May 1st. Now, if you close maybe on March 1st or 2nd, your first mortgage payment will probably be April. Now, don't get me wrong, because I didn't realize this until someone pointed out. Now, this is a 20-year-old version of Mark, not just being totally ignorant, but I just thought like, oh man, you get this free days. But no, you are paying that interest at closing as prepaid interest. Now, it comes out of your closing costs. It gets kind of all rolled into that, which is offset by some other credits you might be getting on the closing statement. But yeah, no, I think if you close the 6th or 7th or later, you get to that month and a half. So that is always nice. Heck, I did that with my own house when we were getting going refinance wise back in 2007 when you could refinance every 3 months.
Yep.
But so for the answer to that question that I gave the person was, so there's one thing I do like. If I'm closing on a property in the winter, I at least know the heater's working. Or if I'm buying a multi-unit, I know the boiler's working. So many times do I see people, they go buy a building in August and it's like, and I know the boiler's old. Maybe I'll get through a couple seasons. They never get through a couple seasons. You go to fire that thing up. It either has issues right out the gate or, that first kind of drop into 30 degrees. You're like, oh shit, I got to do it. And where I've seen people not prepared, including myself, is all right, that old boiler that I knew about also has old parts that aren't available anymore. So you end up getting put in the situation where it's like you could try, and you have the whole winter ahead of you. So that is something that that's one reason I like to close before or during winter.
Yeah, I've the craziest story I have on that in the summer. Before I did property management, I was a full-time realtor. And for one client, it was midsummer, it's too hot. We wanted to check the heater. So we took the thermostat off the wall, brought it into the car, put it in like a bag of basically like not a bag, like we kept it sealed or whatever, but kept it with air or in the AC of the car and some ice around it to get it to register as cold so that we could flip it back on and have it turn the heat on really quick. It works. It's terrible, but it works. So there are some ways that if you don't have a lazy inspector to still get the heat to kick in, even in midsummer. But yeah, and the other tip I'll give is when you go under contract, look at the weather. If you can, for your inspection, if you can pick the day or the day after it's going to rain that the night before, you can catch a lot of things that you may not have caught um, if it's sunny and dry for the week that you're buying.
Yeah, and even then, even if you can't time the inspection, I know I bought a property a couple years ago in Downers Grove where it rained a hell of a lot, like for the 2 days prior, and that was about a week out of closing. But I said I can't get over there and measure something, so the realtor got me in. He was cool enough, I knew him, and I got in, and the sump pump was gone, and it was broken, and there's about 2 inches of water in the basement. It was an unfinished basement, but that's something I want to close and deal with, and ultimately the seller had to get that new sump pump installed so they can get that fixed. So yeah, keep that in mind too with like you said, when you're looking for leaks around windows, leaks in roofs, leaks seepage in the basement. Like, yeah, if you could, while you're under contract, go to the property, you can find some of these things that you can't necessarily find if you're buying it through a drought in the middle of summer. So
And another, and maybe I'm biased and extra cautious on this because I work on the south side a lot, but please don't skip your walkthrough the day of closing or the night before closing. I've heard nightmare stories of, oh, we close and then I went to the house 2 days later to start work and all the pipes are gone. Well, at that point, the seller has no obligation to you. You had the keys. Whatever happened after you closed because you should have done a walkthrough. So um make sure the pipes are there, make sure water works. Like you said, take a look at the basement, all that stuff. But don't go 2 weeks before your closing and be like, oh, everything is okay.
I got two, and they're both. I'm not trying to be competitive, but they both beat that story. One,
All right, go ahead.
do that final walkthrough because sometimes tenants are supposed to be out. Maybe you're buying a two flat and one's empty, and the tenant's supposed to move out, and you close, and you're supposed to take over vacant building. But all of a sudden, they told the owner they're going to move out. Maybe they even threw some stuff out, and they're still there. So that's a big one, right? Secondly, a guy that, and I've seen that first one happen many times to people, especially out of state buyers. They rely on their agent. I think one time it was someone I was connected with, but someone I knew of. They basically said they went and did the walkthrough and they didn't. So they tried to cheat that out of state buyer. But the biggest one, guy closes a day later. He goes and the house burned down. The house is gone. It was down. It was a brick two flat that started on fire. It was so bad condition that the city came in day two within 48 hours and demoed the whole property. So he showed up to a vacant piece of land. And the bigger kicker of it was he didn't have insurance. He didn't put insurance in place yet. So he ended up basically buying a $210,000. It wasn't a bad price for a two flat back then. Piece of land that he was only able to sell for like 25 grand. And he had the mortgage too, so he had a bigger problem. So, but yeah, so those are the two things. So I always do that final walkthrough.
How did they let him close without insurance? That's even whoever that mortgage broker is probably getting fired too.
I think you bought a cash, so I think you get
Oh,
around
I think
that.
so there was a
Well
mortgage.
too.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
I didn't say that, but I think that was the case in that scenario. But sometimes I've done this before where it's like my insurance guy sends it over and maybe a closing's not certain. And then like 3 days later after I close, he emails like, hey man, when are you going to close? Let me know. It's like, oh shit, bind it 3 days ago. So I know sometimes they just want confirmation you're going to have coverage or the coverage you will have. But yeah.
I see that too a lot. I saw one guy post a video on TikTok, which this is terrible advice. Please do, like, if I could find the video, I'll link it or whatever, just to make fun of it. But he owned the home. He owns the home in cash or whatever, bought it or whatever. So he doesn't insure it because he forces his tenants to have tenant insurance. So if the building falls down, they'll rebuild it for him. That's
Wow.
not how renters insurance works.
No.
So there's always some people giving some terrible advice out there that we got to be careful of. Um, but man, insurance, I know it's getting expensive and it keeps rising, but the price of insurance versus your house burning down or something bad happening, it's one of the few things that's totally worth it still. So
Man, the best return I ever got on a property was when I closed on. I bought a portfolio from CIC, And if you ever get a loan through CIC Community Investment Corps, shout out to them if you're getting financing for units 5 and up. Like they're a great resource. Even so, we started working with them when the times were tough back when no one was lending money, but they're there consistently every year. But bought the building and burned down. We had full insurance on it, and I think we bought it for 30, and our insurance was 320. So it was like the nicest. It was the best one ever. So, but yeah, insurance is man. Here's I guess another tip, and we tell our clients this all the time is like, you plan on having insurance to file it for that fire or for that car that goes through the front of the building, or for if somebody hits your fence and nicks it, or you get you're not gonna you shouldn't be filing claims, especially nowadays where everything is so right. Insurance is looking for any reason to jack your stuff up through the roof, so
or drop you and not even cover you at all.
Yeah, or not even cover you at all. So like when we were buying we were going through everything, buying on the south side, we literally had a master policy. But I think we had a $25,000 or $30,000 deductible, where it's like, we're just going to self-insure for this, and anything above that is the only point you need for the liability. That's the other big piece too, right? But when it comes to property, like, I am not going to file a claim unless it's going to cost me more than 25 grand, because I have hundreds of other properties that effectively could get screwed on a monthly basis for multiple years just because I'm trying to get 15 grand.
And as a recovering insurance agent, they're not just looking at so when we pull for a policy, they're looking at the building. Did that building have any claims? They're also pulling your name. So if you have 10 houses and you filed a claim on house number 1, it's also going to jack up the prices for 2 through 10. So that's a huge thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that you're not only just raising the price on that house, you're raising the price because they look at you as, this is a person that is going to call us every little time, so we're going to make sure we charge for that.
Yeah, and State Farm stopped insuring stuff in LLC. So if you have an LLC, they'll insure Tim Harstead with Bridgeport LLC as the additional insured. So, and they're doing that because they don't want to hide. I mentioned a bunch of companies are doing this now, but I know State Farm is for sure. They don't want you to be able to hide behind the LLC and not be able to track it like you're saying they do.
Yeah. One more thought. You brought up CIC real quick. If you're self-managing and you're getting into real estate for the first time, or you're a newer investor and you're not going to hire someone like Mark or myself to manage your property, they put on a class. It's not that expensive. I think it's like $50 or $100 or whatever to go. It's a pretty good class to just get a little bit of a grasp of what you need to know for Chicago, and put you on the right path. So I would recommend them for that as well.
I'm going to put the link in here because I love that class. I've been to it twice. I
make my PMs go. Like, anyone we hire as a new hire, we send and make them go.
Yeah, no. So we put our team through it as well too. We actually have our remote staff, even people that aren't in the States, go through it, because there's a lot of stuff that they don't understand about the law and all that stuff. So they'll go through the remote one. But we actually had CIC out here. We did that course you're talking about in our office in November. So cool. They usually offer only classes in the city. So we got them come out of the suburbs, and we had a bunch of suburban landlords that got to take the class well too. Great class. You learn something every time. Even 20 years into it, I still learn something from it. So that reminds me too. This is something else that I shared with an investor the other day. The tax program, I was going to look at it for 7 units or up. The low, I'll find what it is. But if you have a building that's got 7 or more units, and you've done some sort of substantial rehab, I think when I say substantial, if you put 100 grand into 7 units, which isn't much when you really break that down, you can apply for to get a reduction in your property taxes for the entire building. There's only one caveat with that. You do need to keep 2 of the 7 units affordable under the AMI, the affordability rate AMI, which it's not hard to do that. If you have one of them's a garden apartment, and more likely the AMI is a lot higher in areas than most people expect when it comes down to quote unquote affordability. So if you have a building that's 7 units up and you haven't taken advantage of this program, if you haven't looked into this program, I would definitely do so. And if you bought a property that was turnkey, you know, maybe you didn't put that 100 grand in, there are certain circumstances where it'll qualify. The previous guy did the work. You bought a rehab building, and now you could qualify for it.
Yeah, and from what I researched that before for a few clients, it's basically energy efficiency stuff. So windows, your boiler system, new electric, especially if you buy an old building on the south side that has cloth wire still, rerunning that wire, stuff like that all count towards those projects.
I had a guy the other day call me in Blue Island. He was looking for advice. He ended up he was gutting out the unit, and he didn't realize they opened up the ceiling. He still had tube and knob in the ceiling. And the city was coming out like next week to inspect it. And he's like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" I'm like, "Man, yeah, I don't think there's any way around this. Like, you are just gonna have to uh, rip that out and get the permit to get the right stuff in there." Have you seen tube and knob before?
We had a client who told us they did a gut rehab of the like whoever he bought it from did a gut rehab of the property, and one of the tenants moved out, so we started looking at it through the turn, and we come back to them with a quote and be like, "Hey, we got to rerun electric. We should rerun electric." No, they went down to the studs before. Well, if they did, they put back in wiring from the 40s. So this guy thought he had brand new wiring, thought he had brand new everything, and was completely scammed. And they apparently never pulled out an outlet when they did the inspections to check. But yeah, that's what
Oh,
they had there.
geez, how do you as a contractor think like they'll never figure this one out? Like, that's crazy. Like,
I mean, I think it's crazier that it got all the way to me and a tenant living there for a few years, and then they moved out and did it. So like, it would have worked if they didn't hire a good PM that had their back and watched for them. And even at that point, I don't know if they were able to get anything for it or go back or whatever. But yeah, it's sometimes people just take people's words for it and run.
huh, that's crazy. That is crazy. What else do we have on our list to talk about today? I know you had a couple things that
I got a
were.
couple things. An interesting story for everyone. We talked about, I think that a couple weeks ago about how the Section 8 is being scrutinized and they're going after for illegal immigrants and things like that. And I brought up that they should really just go after the program as a whole because there's a lot of fraud there. And then I saw this Ivan over from Southwest Housing, the MBOA on the Southwest side, posted this that the commissioner Deborah Parker is having an internal hearing where she misreported her income. She is on the CHA board and basically helps run and CHA. She misrepresented her income because she was getting a voucher and free rent and not reporting the income that CHA was paying her, which I'm still trying to figure out how do you get paid by the company that then gives you the voucher, but somehow hide the money that you're getting paid from that company? Like, that's how you know it's fraud. When,
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a conflict of interest going on there. There's a few different things probably wrong with that scenario.
But it does, out of all the things going on, it does appear that they are actually looking at CHA. From a federal standpoint, from a city standpoint, they're putting their hands towards the fire a little bit and starting to internalize some of these investigations at the city level and at the Fed level. So we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more turnover. I know last year, a year and a half ago, they replaced their CEO. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more changes.
Well, a lot of people have asked me in the past, the state of Illinois, you have these issues here, should I invest there? Should I go invest somewhere else? And Section 8, what if they stop paying Section 8? And I used to say, Section 8 comes from the federal side of things, and you don't have to worry about Illinois' dysfunction and to be able to get that. But now the federal side's really starting to look into this, so it makes you wonder what changes will be to the program in the upcoming years, just because of stuff like that. Think about that as just kind of scratching the surface. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like 20 years ago where they put basically, lack of better terms, CHA under receivership, basically. And someone from Washington, they had to kind of run it federally versus let it run independently for, I don't know how long it happened, but Atlanta, it happened to Atlanta, and it happened to Chicago, and yeah, it's kind of messed up how. And the end of the day, what really the people that get it's not even us, the landlords, it's the tenants, or the lack of tenants that could be benefiting from the program. When you really look at it, you think about there's thousands of CHA run units that are vacant, nice ones, newer ones that are built in the last 20 years, like over there. I think we talked about it here somewhere over on Western and 290 right there, on the near west side. And
Well, we were talking about the ones that were they're like West Rogers or up north somewhere in that area, but they all got shut down for lead-based paint and
oh
for
yeah, yeah.
like these are CHA owned properties that are being ran terribly, and it's like, yeah, there needs to be someone needs to hold them accountable. Someone needs to find out where the money's going. Um, I know the management company that was managing a bunch of them is no longer working with CHA as of like 3 or 4 months ago. So they're hiring new management companies and hiring, but it's just, if you follow the money, I think you can find where it's going, and it's not necessarily going where it needs to.
Nice. Now we hired a technician recently, awesome guy, man, and he worked in what's the huge housing development down there, 127th, the biggest one ever. I'm trying to blank on the name.
I
Um,
can't think of it.
what's it called? They just redid it a few years ago under Obama. They built the whole thing. But he's like, I remember I interviewed him, and in the interview, he's like, man, if there's anything I learned about working in and around CHA is how to not replace things. And just to put a band on it to hopefully get through another season. Like that was what he told me in the interview. So I find that I still think about that every time I hear about CHA.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. We're gonna see, and like I said, it's if they're gonna actually hold them accountable, I think in 5 years we'll be better off. I think in a year or two, it's gonna be some scary times. So it's gonna be interesting to see, like, all right, does it hold money back? Does it mean that there's gonna be less people? Are tenants gonna have to move out, less vouchers, or are we going to see people lose their vouchers? Because I mean, if you have anything on the south side, you move in a mom and a daughter, and all of a sudden you go to the house and the uncle's there and the brother's there, and there's 10 people living there, which technically would cause them to lose their voucher if it was reported. But as a landlord, you want them to have their voucher because you want the money. So you're not reporting it. They're not reporting it. Everyone's happy. But if they start knocking on doors and looking through it, I think they're going to find a lot of fraud, and it might be a shaky year or two, depending on how bad it goes.
Yeah, I agree. The system is not set up to incentivize anyone for calling people out when there is dysfunction. Like you said, if I do something to a tenant and they lose their voucher, then it's my problem to figure out how to get them out. which
Yeah. Yep.
like, so it's like, why would I ever put myself in that position? And that's kind of how the whole system is set up with that.
No, for sure. Uh, the other thing, we got March Madness starting today. I text you a little bit about what we're doing over at Chicago Style. If you want to, if you don't mind sharing that link, I just private chat you. I still don't have access. I can't comment like you can. But we're doing in the spirit of March Madness and college basketball and all that. We're doing Chicago Investor March Madness. So you can vote on the neighborhoods. I put all 77 neighborhoods into a bracket, and we're taking votes. Let's see which neighborhood is the spot where people wanna invest. But I'm curious. I'm curious where you would vote on some of these, Mark. Um, let's see what I got. What I got. Here's a good one: Avondale and versus Logan Square. Any thoughts on where you'd put your money?
Well, I think I could argue probably the way. If I had a Avondale, I think you still get better pricing over there right now still than you can Logan.
Yeah.
Lakeview versus Lincoln Park.
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking?
So again, it's a good one. I would go Lakeview purely off of, I think, and when I think of Lincoln Park, and obviously I'm a DePaul graduate, I should say, obviously, but for anyone that doesn't know that, I went to DePaul, so I'm a little biased. But when I think of Lincoln Park, I think of the DePaul neighborhood, and you're always going to have people to rent from you, but the turnover is always much higher with student housing than it would be if you're in like Lakeview with families or young professionals. You can get a tenant a little bit easier to stay 2, 3, 5 years. Whereas I think Lincoln Park, especially with the student housing areas, you're looking at a little bit harder, a little more turnover, maybe some 9-month leases in there, some 10-month leases. And you're also looking at college students having parties and doing what college students do. So I think Lakeview's a little nicer for my money.
All right. Well, I like this one. This is a tough one here. I was thinking about this. Belmont Cragen versus Hermosa.
Hmm.
I think I would I can argue both of it either way. I think people investing or buying right now in Belmont Cragen have the benefit of the overflow of people not wanting to deal with the ordinance in Logan or deal with
Mhm.
the pricing in Logan. But I also think Hermosa is pretty good in the sense of it. It's right on the edge of the city over there. It kind of butts up to Oak Park. Like it just is, it butts up to a bunch of areas that kind of bleed over from the bleeds probably a bad word, kind of roll over from the west side over there into the city. So it's kind of on
Mhm.
the edge. So I don't know. I guess if my church is in Hermosa, so I probably would go with that.
Nice. I feel like for me that one's really, it's going to depend, and this is what it does for a lot of things, right? Like people come to me and oh, I heard this is such a good neighborhood. Okay, what are you trying to do? But I feel like over the next 5 years, Hermosa is going to have a much better um rise in prices. You're going to make equity off of it. It's more of an equity play, whereas Belmont Cragen's already a little bit more steady, and the rent's a little bit higher. So in terms of like cash flow, I think if you're looking for cash flow, I think Belmont Cragen. But if you're looking for equity, I think Hermosa has shown signs of increased equity over the last couple of years, more so.
Well, on that note, somebody posted on Instagram, have you noticed a lack of multifamily listings lately that actually cash flow, not in war zones, of course? Haha. Um, what are you seeing as far as cash flow that's outside of some of the traditional, call it D pockets that are very cap rate heavy to outside investors?
So I think that I've been leading this plunge that I think that if we go back to 2019, no one thinks the way that they do now about cash flow. And I think, although, yes, there's always going to be deals, I think the majority of people that were cash flowing 10 years ago, it's because they had it for 5 years already. So, a lot of properties I'm seeing, you're not going to cash flow right when you buy, but as you raise rent and fix things up and stabilize the property, in 2 or 3 years, you're cash flowing. But I haven't, but I agree with the commenter that it is in 2021, 2022, we got spoiled because of everyone selling and the rent being so high that things were capping a lot easier and a lot quicker. And I just don't see that as much right now on the multifamily side, at least.
Yeah, I agree. You know, cash flow is fleeting often. So even you have that cash flow property you buy that you're getting, say $500 a month off of a two flat, but you have to throw a furnace in there that first year that you weren't planning. Your cash flow's gone, but you're not selling the property, right? You're not like, the cash flow's gone. The first year it sucked. I'm going to sell it. It's more and more. And I think as I get older, or more mature, or however you want to word it, all those other things outside of cash flow, the cash flow is probably the least important at this point. So, trying to I think for a lot of people, working professionals, their ability to try to pay as least property tax or not property tax, income tax as possible legally
Mhm.
is super
Yep.
important. And your ability to you go find a two flat in any neighborhood, make barely any cash flow, and you do a cost segregation this year. More than likely, that's going to offset a majority of any income liability you have if you're
That's it.
if you're
Yeah.
making call it 100 grand a year. So like to be able to do that and think about how you're not going to find, even in 2001, you weren't finding that type of cash flow. I'm sorry, 2011 or 12 or 13, you weren't
Mhm.
finding that type of cash flow that would offset that huge of a whack of tax liability. So some of those other benefits here are just that much more important than cash flow. Because here's the thing: if anyone listening here, if you buy a property here in any one of these neighborhoods, call it war zone, not war zone, you're going to you'll probably never regret it 10 years from now, unless you bought bad, unless you bought a lemon or you bought something that had a bunch, you paid too much for it, has too many problems. That's a different problem. But if you buy a halfway decent property that you get your inspection on, you check all your boxes on your buy process, you'll be fine 10 years from now, and you'll have cash flow from 10 years from now. I think about properties I bought 10 years from now. I used to get,
See,
I got a
that's the kicker. I think
yeah.
is that it's you're not your PITA, but your actual mortgage rate, your actual mortgage, right? Your principal and your interest is going to be the same today as it is in 10 years if you don't refinance. Obviously, you can fight me on your property taxes and your insurance can go up a little bit, but rent keeps ever. Have you had a year yet? I don't know how long you've been investing, but have you had a year yet where rent doesn't increase? Uh, and I mean, it doesn't happen a whole lot, you know. Um, you're going to cash flow a lot better the longer you hold on to properties. And I think a lot of people that say that they're cash flowing when they buy a property, they're not accounting for CapEx stuff that's going to come up. Like you said, if the furnace is 17 years old and they're cash flowing, all of a sudden all that cash flow goes away in 3 years when it hits 20 and it breaks because they're not accounting for CapEx and knowing that they have to replace a roof in 5 years or 20 years or whatever. So yeah, I think a lot of stuff you can move numbers around and make it work, but everything cash flows in the future better.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So kind of going back to your bracket here, this is pretty awesome. So anyone can
Yeah.
go online and I posted it up here. Anyone could go on and vote. Is that what this should do?
So right now the way it's working, we're actually doing predictive for the next few days here. So go on, you can fill out your bracket and fill it out, throw in your email address. We're gonna give out $100 Home Depot gift card to whoever has the best predictions. So you got a little chance to win and everything there, but then we'll start the voting. Um, and yeah, we'll see what everyone in Chicago, all the investors think is going to be the best spot, and we'll share it here weekly of who's winning and who other people think that money's going. Because at the end of the day, if majority of people think that Belmont Cragen is going to be worth more in 2 years, the people that have Belmont Cragen properties right now are going to be able to sell it for more because there's people that have that faith. So it's going to be good information that will give us. So help us out, and the link that Mark just shared for everyone, share it around, and the more people that fill it out, the better the data will be for everyone. And we'll publish it and talk about it here.
Awesome. We got another comment on here from Eva. Any fun stories with non-conforming units? How do you handle non-conforming units as far as rentals? Are you scared to use them? Like, talk to me about kind of where you're at with that. Illegal units.
So here's how I look at it. A very wise man who used to be my boss when I worked for Farmers Insurance. His favorite phase was, it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask permission. Um, so the way I look at it, I don't personally go and everyone that signs up here or signs up with us, I don't go and pull their zoning cert and see if it's a legal flat or a two flat before I rent it. With that being said, if you come to me and you're like, hey, I want you to rent this basement out and it has 6 foot floor or 6 foot ceilings and no windows, and it's obviously not a unit, we're not going to do it. So the I think that's the biggest thing is like, can you pass oh, I didn't know, sorry judge, like we'll move the tenant out and no hard feelings, or is it obvious that it's an illegal unit because there's not a door? Some people are trying to rent out basements and there's not two exits. Like, you're going to get caught then. It's super easy for a tenant to see it, and the second the tenant gets mad at you, they're going to call the city.
Yeah, caught in liability. I never want to be responsible for somebody dying in a fire because they only had one way out on an attic
Mhm.
apartment. So I know for us, we will turn those down. I'm scared enough someone ever died in a fire with 6 exits in one
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
units, let alone an attic that's only got one way up and one way out. That scares me, and the basement units as well too, where it could be a death trap or something that's super unsafe. So that's something that I know we are always looking at and considering. We had the episode this past week on conforming the whole ADU rollout now, where they went from
Mhm.
the pilot program to now next month in April, every ward has the option to opt in or opt out. And we talked about that in the episode. And we talked about, and Tom was kind of negative on the show, which rightfully so, because he's trying to do the good thing and right thing and follow the process and all that. And just expensive. Even through
Yeah.
the pilot program, it still ends up being an expensive venture to take a garden unit and make it legal. And sometimes the math doesn't math for I got to put X amount of money into it to get another $400 a month when I could just do what I'm doing right now. So I don't think the city has done too many favors of making the process easier or cheaper in that sense.
And the crazy part is, I was in a lot of those meetings talking to aldermen and things like that last year or 2 years ago when this first started coming up. And that was a point that a lot of them made was, "Hey, we could do this, we can make it legal, but, like, are people gonna volunteer and come to us and say, 'Hey, I've had this apartment forever, come search it and give me a bunch of fines,'" and, like, there was talk about that, and I think that's gonna have to be the next iteration, maybe in a year or 2, where they go, "Hey, look, if you already have it and it's up to code, we're just gonna sign off on it." Because right now, the way that it's written is like, yeah, if we don't like you, you can get it, but then we're gonna make you tear down the wall and prove to us that the electric's right, and prove to us that something that's been there for 30 years is up to code. And I don't see a lot of people, like you said, Tom, probably one of them that's going to volunteer that info to them to let them know that, hey, this unit that's I've been renting for 30 years isn't legal. Can we legalize it and go through that process? It's gonna be super expensive.
Yeah, it definitely is not a solve on the whole um, affordability crisis that we have here. So, what else you got before we wrap?
There was one more thing that I thought that I had as well. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. The other and I'm hoping you have something else. I don't, and on a sad or not a sad note, but a bad note for everyone. But just giving fair warnings as we're starting to. The other fun part about spring is we're starting to talk about lawn care and stuff like that. If you've gone to the gas pumps recently, with everything going on in the world, you've probably noticed a little bit of a hike, and projections are that that hike's going to keep going up. Fair warning to everyone for lawn care: you don't pay them to cut your lawn. You pay them to drive to your house. Like the majority of the cost for lawn care is them driving to your house because they're there for 5 minutes. That's fine, but they have to drive to you. So if we're seeing gas prices, if gas prices in the next month hit the 450 range like it was, in 2019, 2020, I would expect to see landscaping prices this spring and summer spike with that, and that's sort of what we're seeing as we haven't gotten official quotes yet, but we're starting to talk to vendors unofficially, and that's what we're hearing is that we're probably going to see some rate hikes this year.
Yeah, you hit it spot on. I always tell owners, for your typical Chicago lot, that they're like, I only have one small patch. I'm like, listen, man, it costs them 35 to $40 just to show up. Like that's how much it to get them there. They
Mhm.
might charge you another X amount of dollars to mow it, but that's not their cost. That's really cheap to them. So we talked about this on the podcast a long time ago, but we had a guy on that all he does is convert Chicago lots to not needing lawn care, throwing some shrubbery in there, some bricks, some fake grass. So it's very easy. So maybe this is a good tip, and we try to do this wherever we can. Is if you only have a couple small patches, either turn it to mulch or turn it to rocks, or if you got the artificial turf that I see a lot of people. We have a couple properties in Bridgeport that are like that. They have artificial turf down. It's still pet friendly and all that, but then you just get rid of that cost, which it probably for a single family or 2 flat or 3 flat, you're probably looking at 12 to 1500 a season without any like
Yep.
cutting trees or anything like that. So if it costs you $1,000 to do it, you'll get your return on the first year.
Yeah, my brother turned his yard into a putting green um, last summer. So there's some ideas out there that you could do, even if you're for your home, and save that money. And it's it's still, like you said, it's still good for the dogs. It absorbs, like whatever they built, it still absorbs whatever it has to absorb for pets and things like that. But then you have something you can walk on, and you're not worried about the ground being uneven and all the other dangers. I don't know if you've ever gotten those fun lawsuits of, I walked in the grass and it was uneven and I fell. It takes away that risk too. So I've been looking into it. There's a lot of good for this artificial turf that I've been seeing pop up more and more.
We have been defending a lawsuit for a property in, I believe it's Country Club Hills. A tenant, the little sewer pipe that comes up at right around the sidewalk for, what do you call it? It's a clean out. It's the old school clean out.
Yeah.
It's like that little metal circle piece. Somebody tripped over it. It's like 2 or 3 years at this point. It's like actually 3 or 4 years at this point. Tenant's been evicted since then, even. Like it's like horrible back and forth. I had to do the testimony or the deposition twice for she had 2 different attorneys. Like, so if you have one of those things sticking up in the yard, put enough dirt around it so it's not a tripping hazard. Again, that's very rare, and don't run out and do that. It's not a horrible thing, but that's one of those dumb things that it's like, really, that's what we're defending. It's been going on so many years now.
Yeah.
All right, man. So we're leaving on a good tip here. We're ending. We're saying, hey,
there we go. We turned it good. We took a sad song and made it good. Just
$1,200
like the Beatles.
Get rid of your lawn care. You're set.
There you go.
And then if you don't have if you're putting all that turf and all that stuff, then you don't got to worry about shoveling it either. So if don't put it, I see people go put all concrete back there. It's like, now you got a different problem. But all right, man. Well, how can people reach you if they're looking to talk property management, if they have any questions?
Yeah, reach us out. Facebook, search Chicago Style Management. We also have the link, and we'll be posting updates for our March Madness there. So make sure you're checking that out. Otherwise, ChicagoStyleManagement.com, and then YouTube /Chicago Style MGMT. Check out our podcast and all our videos for tips and things like that. How about yourself?
All right. Mark Ainley, GC Realty Inc. You can message me at Mark Ainley REI on Instagram. I'm pretty responsive there. And it looks like we've getting a whole bunch more followers on Instagram lately following the show. So I know I'm seeing a bunch of people reaching out saying they're following us here on a weekly basis. So this is growing. We're doing it, Tim. We're making it happen.
Awesome.
All right, watchers, listeners, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. All right, everything's ending.
Sweet. I know you're gonna go out for a second or in a second here, but you said that Instagram's growing, and all I think about the last few days, all I've thought about when people say things is if you haven't seen any of it yet, the Afro Man trial.
No, I don't know what that is.
You don't know Afro Man Because I Got High, the rapper.
Oh yeah.
So his house got raided by Ohio sheriffs.
Yeah.
And they sued him for defamation because he wrote a bunch of songs making fun of them. And it is the most hilarious, like just him going through everything is the most hilarious.